Chris, if you can hear us, you need to turn your video on, please.
Yeah, I got some feedback on that too.
Everything except what you're not cleared for. There's some secret attachments.
Has Chris come on?
Mel, don't forget to make your mic hot.
I know they're constrained on what they do.
I'll trade,
I
I'll
know
tell
that
you what,
much freedom being
Yeah.
out of
I'll
that.
trade you my arthritis with your allergies.
Text Chris and tell him he needs to come on. You've got his, I don't have his.
What if I throw something in for
He
booze?
just a minute ago said, try to log in, I'll be another minute or two.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I can just go. It's processed through the
It's 2:00 right now. Chris is trying to log in right quick. I want to give him a couple of minutes here before we get started.
Hey, Jeff. I haven't heard anything from the downtown committee at all. There hadn't been anything.
There hasn't been anything happening, yeah.
I was sent one cryptic email, but it was something we've got in here, so I'm gonna.
Okay, now that, I'll be sure and let you know, and you should be getting those, but I'll be sure for some time to follow.
Okay.
If there hasn't been anything.
Very good.
Did we start without it having come off? Yes. Okay. Okay, I got the okay from legal that we can go ahead and start, and he's trying to log on now. He'll be on before we get to the reports, most likely. So let's call the meeting to order. Mr. Boutin, would you give us an invocation? Lead us in an invocation, please.
Sure. Dear Heavenly Father, please provide us with wisdom today for all of our board members, city staff, and all those in attendance to be able to develop good solutions and make good decisions. Help us to deliberate and debate in a civil and courteous manner, respecting all opinions. And finally, thank you for blessing our community with opportunities that have improved and will improve the lives of all of our citizens. For this we pray. Amen.
Amen. Okay. Minutes of our September 9th meeting. Everyone has a copy of those. I'll entertain a motion.
I have a couple of adjustments.
Okay.
I believe, and you may want to confirm this, Norma, the FMC final payment is shown in there as $7,398, and I think it's $76,398.40. I'm pretty sure that's correct. And then at the very end of the minutes, it lists my name. I chaired the meeting, but it's calling me the president, and I'm the vice president, so need to change that.
You want us to change it to president, or do you want
I want to change it to vice president.
Thought I might just take
He
it.
did tell us to mention how smoothly the meeting went.
And it was over at 3:06. It went pretty quick, too.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
right.
yeah.
So, okay, with those changes, I'd entertain a motion to accept the minutes.
So move.
And a second.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. It carries. Okay. Economic Development report, and this will be Tracy Jones this time around. We're excited about that.
I'll go a lot faster too. Okay, so we'll start off with the Nacero project. Wes told me to report on that TCEQ has approved their draft application, and it is in their 30-day review period. And after which time, then, if there's no objections or anything like that, which they didn't have anything on the last permitting that they went through, they will receive their final permit. They are also continuing to work on their water sources and finalizing their 313 agreement and with ECISD and the tax abatement agreements with the other taxing entities. We are still continuing to work with Project Build, which is a metal building manufacturer, materials manufacturer who is considering expanding into the Odessa area. The Compliance Committee has recently met on that and had requested additional information for further evaluation, and so we should have that Compliance Committee meeting scheduled again within the next week or two. We're still working with Project CTV, which is the carbon capture project, the $750 million capital investment with 200 plus jobs. They are processing and finalizing their 313 agreement with ECISD and their tax abatement agreements with the other taxing entities so they can move forward. We are continuing to work with a couple of other expansion projects that are in the very early stages, trying to get all their information together for the application process to see if they qualify for any kind of grant monies. And we have recently completed the apartment survey and major employers list that we update annually, and those have been updated on our website, so that way they're available for review, along with the income report for August and the Odessa Development News. And in partnership with Encore, we attended FabTech Trade Show in Chicago, and we'll be following up on those leads with additional information on Odessa as we get those leads back in from Encore. So that's all we have today. If y'all have any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer those or find the information for you and get back with you.
You said Project Build was going back to compliance?
Yes.
And I was confused about that because I thought that was probably item number 8 on our agenda today.
Well, we were trying to get a compliance committee meeting before, and so we asked them to put that on the agenda just in case.
Okay, so that didn't.
Yeah, so
Okay.
we're going to have to table that today. Okay? That's all.
Okay.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions? Thank you, Tracy. Mr. Craig Van Amberg with the CVA report.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your devotion to this organization and the time that it requires of you. Most of my information is in the report that you have in front of you. I'm just going to touch on a couple real quick highlights. Our television spots in PGA golf is winding down as the season winds down, but just in time for Cowboy football and our spots that are running on the Cowboy games on KPEJ, KWES, KOSA, and Telemundo. Outdoor advertising, we have a billboard that is running right now, welcoming people to the Permian Basin Oil Show, and glad that they're here, that they are here to visit with us. Social media overall right now was down slightly, with Facebook down after a really significant jump in August. So that's not necessarily to be expected, but not totally surprising. Our Twitter profile visits were up. Website traffic was also up, and also on the Permian Fuels America. I will add one thing that has started this past Saturday in our Advertising Council committee meeting. We talked about Geo-Fencing the Permian Basin Oil Show, and we have started that, welcoming people to the oil show, and that program will last for 3 weeks following the show, and will go to the people that actually attended the show on their phones. They'll get reminders about what a great place Odessa is. So that is my report, unless there's any questions. I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Any questions? Anyone?
No, we are going to have a ad committee report here in a minute, but I felt, and maybe you have it, if not, I'll run downstairs and get it. But if you could hang around for that, because I'd like to talk.
Oh, I'm
about,
planning on being here. Yeah.
Some of the items that we were going to strip out of CVA and all that, and I left that down in the truck. So if you have that handy, that would be.
have it semi-handy. I can remember quite a bit of it, Jeff.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Black Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Walker.
Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone is having a blessed day. We're gonna, you have the reports. We're going to, it's pretty repetitious. Only thing different is that even though we've had some issues and with COVID, and still we saw an increase in our social media activity. We were up 0.5%, half a point. So any increase is a good increase, especially when you've worked for an oil company for years. The Black Chamber was able to, went back to walk-in visits. We've started letting companies come back into the office and visit. We had 3 potential small businesses come in and get information about how to do startups. We pretty much referred them and gave them the links to the SBDC. We awarded all of our golf recipients their scholarships. They've been, their schools have received their monies, and they were even, some of their colleges and universities matched what we gave them. So this was very helpful for some of the students. We have started advertising our 31st annual Libany Bar Award, which is scheduled for November the 13th at 6 o'clock at the Odessa Country Club. And this is going to be honoring Dr. Gregory Williams of Odessa College. Dr. Nate Hearns will be the speaker. We've started doing a mass media push on this, and so pretty much when you drive down Grant or anywhere out in the city, you'll probably see advertisements. So we are pushing our banquet as well as Odessa and our sponsors and our backers. We just hosted our seventh installment of the Small Business Workshop with the SBDC and Mr. Patton. We have been asked to help assist the Chuck Wagon Gang on Wednesday. This will be our first time assisting them with the oil show. We'll be helping them on Wednesday to serve some of our oil show goers. So this is something that we've been working with the Chuck Wagon Gang, and we're developing a great relationship. So we're going to take part in this. We just hosted our second networking breakfast, which we had over 150 people attend. Small businesses gave out information. They were able to meet some of our new board members and some of our regular members. So this just pretty much gave everybody an opportunity to come out and see what we were all about. That's pretty much the high points. Any questions?
On the country club deal that you're having on the 13th, are y'all selling sponsorship tables?
Yes,
Is that
sir,
how you're
we
doing
are.
that? Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Before you leave, get some information either to my wife or.
And
about
yes,
that.
sir, we will most certainly do that.
Okay.
And thank you in advance for any and all help that you guys
Any questions?
Yeah.
From Chris? Seeing none,
Thank you.
we'll pass on to Mr. Patton.
Good afternoon. Hope everybody's having a good day. The report is in your packet. I wanted to go over a few things within it, however. The month of September, we had 260 counseling hours and 260 counseling sessions, 194 counseling hours. September was our national conference that we are required to attend, so that cut in. That basically took a week from us in terms of counseling sessions and hours. We had 3 workshops with 37 attendees. We did have 6 new businesses start within the last month. Among these were a towing company, a boutique, a food processing company, a construction company, a self-serve gas station, and a liquor store. And again, those are throughout the entire region. However, 3 of them were in Odessa. Total capitalization for the month was a little over $1 million. $152,000 of that was in Odessa. And we added, our clients added 12 additional FTEs for the month of September. So a couple of things going on this month. We've got 4 workshops. We've got the one on business plan narrative, another on how to write a business plan, how to start a business, and then financial projections, which I'll be doing later this week. So we've got 4 of those going. We're also going to have someone from the Census Bureau do a workshop for us for business owners in November. And it's basically going to be showing people how to use the tools on census.gov website to basically crunch numbers and look at their market and things like that. She went through it with us. I thought it was pretty cool. I don't think it's going to be for everybody, but for some it might be very, very good information and give them a basis for kind of going forward with their business. Any questions?
Any questions?
No,
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
thank you.
Motran.
Well, I'll tell you what, we thought we had good news last month, and we've got even better news this month. So, since your last meeting, we've had our announcement with Southwest Airlines that they're bringing their additional flight to Austin, or direct flight between Midland, Odessa, and Austin here. And so we've got a little bit of information on that, and you know, this goes back to a lot of, some of you, oh,
If I may stop and interrupt, we need to have the faces visible on the camera, so if we can kind of adjust. Mr. Robinson, if you could move over there where, next between Tim and Jeff, please, my apologies. Do I need to
I don't, Chris, this is a technicality on y'all's part. Chris knows what we look like. But we will adjust.
Mr. Cole, could you move your screen, please?
I'm gonna turn it off. I really don't wanna look at him. Is that working better?
Yeah.
Mr. Russell, could you shift to your right?
I need a pillow.
I don't wanna share a booth with your tan.
Not sure which way I gotta go here.
I don't blame you.
Okay, sorry for that interruption. We got,
How's that?
think that's gonna make
Now you can see me.
get our photo shots right.
What do you mean? Look at it.
this was on.
Are we okay now? Okay. Are we there yet?
Ma'am, you know right here? Yeah.
Oh.
Get your chair.
And I think the same is for our report.
No, you're fine.
So I guess they're gonna have to go up and report in order to be compliant.
Do what now? We can't hear you,
We have
Natasha.
to be able to see every participant for the video conferencing, and so we can't see our, reporters either.
Oh, our presenters.
Right.
So how do you
Who- who
want
we
to
doing?
pass that?
We'll come behind you and screen.
You would have to come behind,
Okay.
Well, since everybody else has been a lawbreaker, I'm gonna go ahead and be a lawbreaker too. How about that?
well, no, I would prefer, I guess we need to do our other reports again, and I would prefer that everybody can be seen unless we can find a camera that will.
Natasha, what if they walk up here, get on the camera, and then go back over here? Then we know who it was, who
Well,
it's
the
talking.
demeanor,
Mr. Chairman, we've provided you that material in writing. Would it make it easier just to leave it or that for another time?
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Send,
that with all the reports and ask if there's a question or anything on those reports.
I can't understand your,
If you'd like to do that with the rest of the reports, you can provide the reports in writing and ask if there's any questions.
we can do that. Okay, Cindy's next. No, Larry Fry's next.
Would it be best if I stood behind or what?
He can
Your face.
come up here and go stand behind. I don't think we need to do financials. If you're waiting for me to ask a question on those financials, we'll be here forever.
Well, we'll try to do it
I'll-
as best we can.
Sit right here and I'll stand. I'll stand right here and they can see my demeanor.
All right, well, again, thank you for being here. This is really a little bit different situation. This is the financial report for the month of August, and I wanted to highlight a few things and note others. So the total assets for August increased by a total of $57,970. Total assets were $61,203,971. Total revenues for the 11-month period were $9,583,947. Total expenditures were $2,331,793. Regarding investments, the city during the month of August did purchase on behalf of ODC Judson, Texas ISD taxable bonds with a $500,000 par. The yield is 37 basis points. The term is about 29 months to maturity. We also did, as we've talked about for several months now, did finalize the purchase of the $2 million CD with the local bank here in Odessa. The rate is 50 basis points for a term of 1 year. That actually was settled in early September. Finally, our sales tax collections for October of this year were $871,850 compared to October of 2020, which was $777,209. It's an increase of $94,641 or 12.18% over last year's collections. The collections budgeted for October of 2021 was $714,089. So our collections exceeded the budgeted projections by $157,761 or 22.09%. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to take any questions, and I'll get out of your way.
Stay here.
Yeah, and go to investment policy?
Yeah.
It's later on the agenda.
It's on the agenda. Yeah. Can we,
I'll be happy.
yeah, let's go ahead and do the investment policy while he's up here. Is that okay?
Certainly fine by me. All right, the agenda item for the investment policy is just that, the City of Odessa and Odessa Development Corporation's investment policy, which is effective October 1, 2021. This policy is required under the Public Funds Investment Act, PFIA, and is prepared in accordance with the Government Finance Officers Association, GFOA, recommended practices, and is required to be updated on an annual basis. This policy has already been approved by the Odessa City Council. There were very few changes of the policy for this year compared to last year's policy. Just to emphasize certain points within the policy includes all financial assets of the city and the ODC, except for the Fireman's Relief and Retirement Trust Fund. The policy identifies the objectives of this investment policy as well as allowable investments and outlines reporting requirements. The policy identifies the investment officers, namely the Assistant City Manager of Administrative Services and the Director of Finance. And finally, the policy lists the 4 approved brokers, dealers, which are the same as what were included last year. We would be very happy to answer any questions or provide any other information regarding either one of these items.
So did I understand that this has already been approved by council?
It has been approved by council, but it also is required to be approved by this board as well.
Okay.
Because we are making investments on behalf of both the city and the ODC.
So just a couple questions, they're really minor, but in the policy, and it was really lengthy, so it may be in there. did it discuss segregation of duties in respect to who can do what? I mean, one person is not in control of all decisions in respect to buying, purchasing, the decisions of the securities.
I would have to refer specifically to how much the segregation is included in there. Certainly, it does provide those two individuals I mentioned with the authority to transact investment decisions on behalf of ODC.
But doesn't it, can't they operate independently as opposed to collectively?
I believe this gives the authority to either one of those two. There are certain accounts that we have that do require multiple signatures, but it does give the authority to these two individuals to act independently.
Okay. I noticed that one of the specifications is it says something to the effect as far as the return is appropriate. Is there any definition of what appropriate is? And I'm not trying to, I don't think you should back yourself into a corner with it, but I'm just curious because it's really broad.
It is broad because the markets do change frequently, and what may be appropriate at one time might not be in a different market condition. In today's world of such extreme low rates, it's hard to say what it should be. For example, when we were just talking earlier that security we bought last month was yielded 37 basis points. We were also able to get 50 basis points on a certificate of deposit. It really depends upon the market conditions at that time. The most important thing on any of these is far and away the safety of the principal. The return is always secondary to the safety, but it's hard to define what appropriate would be at any given point in time without knowing what the market conditions would be.
Okay. Last question.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking for the types of bonds that are not necessarily that are allowed, but those that are not allowed. And I saw the list, and primarily the disqualified are primarily some flavor of mortgage backs. Is that correct?
You can see in there exactly what isn't allowed. As far as the actual practice, what we do, frankly, we move more on the conservative side of that, and even lay within the general obligations bonds. But there are a list of those in there that are not allowed.
Is corporate bonds part of those that are not allowed?
I might refer to see if Cindy has an answer to that specifically.
Okay. Okay.
My answer would have been no, but I'm
Okay.
going to double check.
Fair enough. And Chris, I have you pointed down, but I know that you've had a lot of questions about the overall policy, wanting to look at that and so forth. Were there any recommendations that you had? Because you've asked for it on a number of occasions, and I don't know if anything has come out of that. Okay, we can move on. Okay, I'm not sure he can hear me.
I think you're looking, aren't you? Did you hear him?
No, I didn't hear him. I don't know that. Hey, Chris, did you hear the question from Chris?
No, I didn't hear it. I don't know if Chris's microphone's not turned on.
Okay. His question was whether or not you had any specific questions regarding the investment policy, because
Yes.
we've talked about this in the past in passing, but
Yes, I have a couple of quick questions. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but for the most part, we're limited to securities that have to be a time limit of 5 years or less, and it has to be A-rated or better. And of course, notwithstanding the restricted securities, obviously. But if we were looking at government bonds or A-rated corporate bonds or municipals, they would need to be A-rated or better in a term of 5 years or less. One of my suggestions, Jeff, and you and I talked about this, is that we pretty well know what our obligations are. And if you take a look at like a Desero, for example, we've got a 10-year time commitment. One of those things I was going to suggest as a pro city council was to get spendthrift approval for situations like that when we know we're going to have an amount of money tied up for a certain time period. In this case, up to 10 years. Can we get approval to seek securities that would be further out on the timeline and therefore be able to get a little better yields as long as they stay under the same guidelines of A-rated or better and don't fall into the restricted securities. Because then we could fall in the direction of building a laddered portfolio, I think a little better than what we're doing now.
Well, Mr. Crowe, I don't disagree with a lot of what you said. Certainly, the cash flow projections and knowing when the funds are going to be needed are an important part of building any portfolio. The issue, one of the issues there is you still have the interest rate risk associated with investing money at whatever rates may be today, and in 2 years or some other time period, it could be substantially different in one way or another. A lot has to do with what the projection of rates are, but certainly that is a very valid perspective too.
I believe everybody would agree that both in a short time frame from now to 3 years, everybody would be in agreement with the only way we're looking at right now, especially with inflationary tendencies as rates go up. The Fed has signaled that multiple times along with every other financial bigwig out there. So while there is interest rate risk, we can't go much further than zero.
That's true.
And so I think that at this point in time, Chris, you probably agree with me especially, we're looking about the only way that we can see is rates to go up. So I know we don't want to tie a lot of money up in long term, but if we already know we've got a commitment for $20 million out on a 10-year time frame, we can't do a whole lot worse, guys, than 0.34%. Isn't that about what we're getting?
That's you're certainly in the right range, yes, sir.
So, but one of my suggestions was just that, though. If we could get approval from City Council when we have obligations that are longer than that 5-year time frame, if we could build a ladder for that money to reach out and get a little better yield, I think it would be a good idea. And at least we know we have it locked in at a better rate than what we're currently getting.
I think there's actually a provision in the policy for that, isn't there, if I remember right?
I think that there is
For
one.
special projects or something is what it's labeled as.
I think you're right,
I
Joe.
remember seeing that, but I didn't know if it specifically tackled this.
I think you're right, and it has to just go to council board approval or something to that effect, I think.
Yeah, we could, it looks like under the special projects or special purpose funds, it says, it seems to indicate that we could do that. We'd have to seek council approval for that project, but it looks like there may be a provision in there that would let us do that.
My big problem, vast majority of money is still in that one government securities fund that's getting us like, I don't know, 0.01 or 0.02%. And that's just crazy. I mean, we know what our obligations are. We should be able to reach out on the timeline. We should have our financial services folks that are approved vendors giving us proposals for that. We've just got too much money sitting and it's not doing anything for us.
I have kind of a related question to that. I noticed there were four firms on the approved vendor list: Oppenheimer, Cantor Fitzgerald, I don't remember who the other, Wells Fargo is one, I don't remember the fourth one. When we go out shopping for I guess two questions there. When we go out shopping investments, do we shop all four of those guys and try to get them to compete for that? And secondarily, when we put together our list, do we try to solicit other firms that may be interested in providing investments?
Well, we try to get whatever we can. Right now, there has not been a whole lot of securities available at this point in time. Municipal bonds, what I'm talking about specifically there. But yes, we do try to have them more on the lookout for us rather than soliciting competitive bids at this point because of the scarcity of some of those types of securities. But we do try to solicit what we can from them, and they try to bring them to us at the same time. As far as additional dealer brokers, it's difficult to deal with too many more than that. Whether that's the right number or not is probably questionable. But we find 4 to be enough to cover the market pretty broadly, but at the same time not be completely inundated with other types of products being brought.
Would you go to that list and tell us when the last time it was you received a proposal from each of those vendors?
It would be strictly from memory that I would do so. With Oppenheimer, we actually bought one from them this morning for the city's account. I don't know that I've had anything further from FHN at this point. Wells Fargo, I would have probably received something in the last month or so, and Cantor Fitzgerald probably would have been somewhat similar to that. But I have not had contact with FHN, the second one on the list.
Do we ever, contact them and say, okay, look, we've got, $5 million here, $2 million, you guys give us a proposal on, based on this time frame, what we're trying to accomplish. Have we ever approached them to get them to do anything like that?
Not in my time here. We haven't done that specifically. We've just been trying to find whatever products would be appropriate given the maturities and the yield on those maturities. But no, we have not done it as you described it there.
And as a suggestion, you might do that just because then they would be actively looking for specific securities. I'm assuming they have a copy of our investment policy statement.
They
Know what we can and can't purchase. But because that's what they do every day.
Yes.
And so, as opposed to, I know the city staff trying to manage the city, if we were to approach them and say, look, we've got 2 million, 5 million, whatever that is, and under our policy statement, would you bring us securities that fit that? I know I used to do that when I was at Smith Barney, and we would get calls, and we were able to put together some pretty special scenarios for our customers that way.
okay.
I have a question to Chris Cole's question. Were you looking for dual control?
I think so, and I just didn't see that really specified
Well,
in there.
it's pretty specific. It says investment transactions shall require the signature of one of the investment officers. So there's not dual control there. So the
there's
follow-up, there's not. So the question I would ask to Cindy is, am I right? And if, is it workable to modify that or necessary?
I can tell you, our practice is we agree on any investment that we make. We don't just let one or the other do it. If we're not both comfortable with it, then we don't do it.
So if you change the investment policy to require it, it's not a big deal, right? Or not?
I don't want to make bureaucracy more bureaucratic, but I'm just asking the question, so.
I mean, part of that's because of the fact that, at any given time, you could have one position or the other vacant, which we did for quite some time. We had the finance director's position vacant. And so that was left up to me to make decisions. So that's part of the reason why it's worded that way.
So in order to make it work, you'd actually have to have a third person authorized all the time.
I'm good.
And then that means you have to have a third person be the investment officer. That third person has to attend all the required training to be that officer.
I don't have any more questions about it. I'm good, thank you.
We need approval on that policy.
I'll make a motion.
Got a motion, need a second to approve the financial?
Second.
Got a second? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign.
I'm sorry,
It passes.
were we passing the financials or both? Financials and investment policy?
We need both.
We need both?
Need both. The financials, what I was asking for. Now, for the investment policy, I need another motion
So move.
and a second. Got a
Second.
second from Larry. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. Thanks. Thanks, Larry. Chris, when you get back in town, let's try to get together, maybe with you and David and I, get together and get general information to give city finances, kind of what we're indicating, the ideas that you have there, and we can move forward on that. Okay. All right. Now, you gonna give the report on? Yeah.
This agenda item is to approve the annual incentive payments for the UTPB, the second training facilities grant. In your package, you saw the compliance monitoring report that was done that showed no findings. And so this is a payment to UTPB, the annual payment of $1.5 million. And then the second one is the UTPB third training facilities grant. Again, you have a compliance monitoring report for that. There were no findings by the compliance audit. And that payment is a payment of $700,000. And I'll entertain any questions you may have.
Move for approval.
Got a motion for approval for both?
Got a second?
And a second, all signify, take a vote, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. And it passes. Okay, thank you, Cindy. Okay, next on the agenda would be item number 5, consider suspension of insurance requirement for downtown infrastructure economic development agreement with La Cantrina until completion of project prior to reimbursement. Alexa? Does she need to come up here?
Well, now nobody's on.
Now
so
nobody's on.
hold off one minute.
Okay. Go ahead and come up when we beam up Scotty, we'll get to you.
I think we need to move to invest in a second camera.
Let's take a brief recess while we try to take care of our technical difficulties. We'll convene back at 2:45.
4 minutes, okay.
Technology's always great when it works, isn't it? I said technology's always great when it works. I said technology's always great when it works.
Are we doing all this for Chris? So everything's on time?
Yeah.
Well, they also have to be able to see
I mean, doing it this way, is he here? This
this shows
remote?
you.
I'd asked him a couple of meetings ago about it, and he said he couldn't do it.
Well, we ran into a computer sort of down on the Sears board.
When they're trying to switch it, but there's two cameras. This has one camera which is only facing the ceiling,
Do it under
and this
these
camera was facing the
deals
board.
that we did, we've done it
So now,
twice. and it
when
worked
it's
so
real
well.
camera, when you move it, you got disconnected, so it's trying to reach.
trying to reconnect.
Bigger deal.
Maybe I'll come up, somebody with a camera phone, so there's talking. It wasn't fun to, when she moved it, but the camera got disconnected now, it's just like.
We literally did invest $100 in something. We even solved this problem.
Oh, yeah. It's like going before the crazy review board, they got a building with a huge skylight and no fake screen.
Can't say anything.
I stayed home. I think this year they could see absolutely
Yeah, I'm
nothing.
trying to set up right now, it's just like now
Throw a
responding
tarp
to my
over the
close
skylight,
approach, and I'm gonna
get a better screen and camera. I sure want to see where is Chris.
Oh, no,
He's at
you're good.
his daughter's golf tournament in
made a birdie. Just made a birdie putt. Cool.
Did you play in the honor?
See, that one is, I don't mind.
Did you, was it a fun tournament?
Because the camera's over here. It's like the monitor, and the camera is here. So it's laying flat.
Did y'all figure it out? Yeah, we should have left well enough alone. Hey, there's a camera.
There you go.
We see your hand.
That's gonna be real close up.
There'll be some others.
Right there? Does it look good?
Yeah.
It just speak loud. I mean, you're not too close, but it just speak loud so the man can pick up your voice. That works?
Got any duct tape down?
No, seriously.
Oh, yeah. A piece of tape, we'd be there.
Okay, we'll start with item number 5 and Alexa. Are we okay?
Good.
All right.
Right here.
Don't move.
Craig. Yeah, Craig's quite understand.
I'll be in the camera.
All right, let's begin there. Let's go.
Okay, we're good to go?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can just take it and keep it slide over. Wait a second. So it's something right there, and then you can adjust. Okay.
You just gotta direct it downward.
Well, the speaker.
No, right now you can only see the lights.
Yeah, you got it. You see that.
There we go.
go. Now, the speaker stood here. You can see him real well.
All right.
Does that work?
Almost hit that in front of that. You didn't know you were so important. Everybody will have their steps. Yeah, there we go. Okay, we ready? Oh. You would have to make that.
That was good. You won't get to see. You won't get to see the demeanor.
Just gonna have to go back up. Okay, Norma, Natasha, we ready?
Well, we can't see Chris Cole and Melanie at all when Alexa's at the podium.
I'm here.
Okay, I can see them on my camera.
No, she's in when Alexis is there.
Oh,
So,
Should I just stand further to the side down there, Natasha?
I can stand. Let's just go.
I'll stand too.
Yeah, let's get this show on the road.
This is C.
We're trying to beat the record of 306 and we're not making it.
no, you're not making it.
Am I too short even when I'm standing?
no.
Is that better? David, you're gonna have to stand too. No. No? I can stand on the desk.
No. I know it's frustrating to me also. Chris, if you'll come over there between, Robinson and Melanie, and we'll just move closer. Yes. Up to that laptop everywhere, that's it.
Just pull this mic over this way. Flip the mic.
This laptop facing that way, and it'll have a camera, and you can turn that camera back towards the dais, and you can have everyone go back to where they were.
Yeah,
Takes a little bit to get that set up.
we could do that.
So, do what now you,
I can put this laptop on the front of the dais with the camera facing out, and it'll project towards the.
And I'll have to turn it down some.
so where do you want me to move?
Will this work right here?
Yes, sir.
Do that. Sorry.
Excuse me, Mr. Williams. Got a bunch of wires over here now. You have to watch out for tripping hazards.
Pick one.
Everybody's gonna be so glad they can see my demeanor.
Now, everybody take your seat.
Now, Mel.
Now, turn her, you face us again like we used to. Is that, whoa, wait a second,
No, that's right.
We got the camera.
Taped off,
Just-
right?
You just got
Hey, Craig,
Just pull the mic around.
there you go.
There we go.
I'm not moving this.
Okay.
Mel. Come on back.
Okay.
Now we cooking. It's been a circus.
Okay, Alexa.
Okay, so for this item, we're actually having just a small issue with La Katrina & Co. Their grant was approved a few months ago and it's gone to contract. And then in reading the contract, they got to Article 2, Section 4 insurance. This property is owned flat out. She doesn't have any kind of mortgage on it or anything like that. So previously she didn't need to have any kind of property insurance or business insurance. She wants to get that eventually, but the agency that she's working with, they want to do an inspection once the property is whole, which can occur until the work that the grant covers has been completed. But the contract states that within 30 days and before reimbursement, she needs to provide that insurance, and she just wants to make sure that she would be in compliance and wants a pass to be able to send this off for counter signature. She's already signed it, but it's not fully executed until your chairman signs it and then the city manager signs it. So she wants to be able to go through the process, get the work done, then get the inspection done and be able to turn in the insurance certificate, knowing that that may take past the 30 days that are in the contract. And she just wants to see if there would be any willingness with ODC to get an extension on that.
So during this time, there's not gonna be any insurance on the building at all?
Correct, yes, sir.
But ODC doesn't have any money invested in it at this point, so if something happened to it, ODC's not out, right?
Correct,
So she's really just operating at her own risk.
yes.
Any other comments? As long as we're not on the hook for anything, then I don't have a problem. If she
We
wants to
have no
take that
exposure.
risk.
I don't think we have an exposure on it.
Yeah. Okay. So, I need a motion to allow her to suspend that insurance requirement of the contract.
I would make a motion that we allow her to suspend it, but I'd like to kind of put a deadline of some, so that we don't keep that money. It's not very much money, as I remember. It was a few $1,000s, but I don't want it just sitting there forever, doing that. So I'd make a motion that we give her an additional 6 months, to
That
get all
plenty?
that in place, and it has to be done before ODC pays out any money.
Yes, and I think that'll work fine for her. She just wants to be able to get the work done, and especially being called La Katrina, she would like to open on Dia de los Muertos, which is coming up very quickly, so the
Okay.
timing is imperative.
You okay with that amendment to his
Yes,
motion? Okay. Motion and a second.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, and I think you've got the next one too.
We're actually going to need to table that one, and it'll come back in
Table.
the future.
You want to
So-
the next meeting, or will you come to us and let us know?
We'll come and let you know.
Okay? All right, item
Thank
7, is Jefferson Cox here?
He is not.
Okay.
The Compliance Committee I'm sorry. Oh, I thought you said something, I'm sorry. The Compliance Committee recently met and, to go over a project called Net Ops. It's a $14 million CapEx, organization that is wanting to create, they've got right now 4 jobs and are gonna create 18 new jobs. They're going to, expand the broadband into areas in Odessa, Ector County that currently is limited on broadband. And after the review of their financials and all the information that they had requested, the Compliance Committee is recommending that they give a job creation grant of $538,784 and a CapEx grant of $330,000 for a total of $868,784, paid over a 5-year period in arrears. So that means they have to go through a compliance audit to receive their payments. And I forgot to tell you, the annual payroll is gonna be $1.4 million also.
Could you walk us through this a little bit? Because I know we've had recently the school district coming to both the county and the city for ARP funds to expand broadband in the county. We've got almost no information on what they're looking at doing. I know Mr. Beecham with Motran has also in times past provided us with a fairly detailed survey of broadband access in the county. And so I'm a little curious to know a little bit more about what these guys are actually proposing to offer, and does that overlap with what the school district is looking to do with ARP funds?
Wow. I was sorry to say, James actually brought us this project, so I'm gonna call on his expertise to come up and talk about this because.
I hope I'm legal now. Okay. Kind of as a background, and going back a little ways, we had a presentation for Chris and David at one point earlier on this that had some more detailed maps with this, and we're happy to share that with everybody. But as we went through this process for you in delineating areas where there were shortfalls in services or needs for improvements and those sorts of things in the original study, one of the things that we started doing was looking for private sector solutions or companies that were coming in and addressing some of these things and then detailing areas and within that report where there were those gaps. The biggest gaps in the report, of course, are West Odessa, South Odessa, the Pleasant Farms area, all that along 385. There are a couple other areas in there, and one of them you get out in Gardendale, some of that, but those were the primary areas. And Net Ops received a CAF grant from the federal government.
Tell me what that is.
It's a Connecting America Fund grant. It's the federal internet grant, and those get bid down because of big companies. So he got $67,000 from the federal government to do a $14 million project. But he went ahead and took that project on, and essentially he's filling the gap where we have those areas with fiber. He's bringing fiber to the area. Some areas it's a hybrid deal as you get out there in some of the less dense areas, but a lot of fiber into that. And so we brought them forward and introduced them to ODC. That's one of the ones that we've been out there working with as they try to do these things. I think what you're looking at, and I know Mr. Cole is on the deal with the schools and all of that. They're looking at some co-op type of setups and those sorts of things, have a plan, create new deals. What we really looked at was existing providers in the area that are already addressing some of these areas that we could leverage them to get that done sooner, faster, better, if that makes sense. But I think it falls into, I know the school had set a detailed limit of 100 megabytes, and this would certainly fall into that with the fiber. So we thought that, again, it was an interesting thing that it hit those primary areas where there were shortfalls in the existing service.
So would this be, when you look at this project, you look at the school district project, are these overlapping? Are they complementary? Is the school district going to buy bandwidth from NetOps? Kind of give me an idea as to what's going on here, because I'm not sure I understand the structure of these two.
Sure. Well, and I don't know if I'm really the best person to talk about what the school district is doing, because I'm not 100% sure. What we looked at again was, here are these gaps in service, here are companies that are filling those gaps. Let's do everything we can to work with them to help expedite that process. The school district, if they're going to use ARPA funds, there would be an issue here, and this is part of the reason that we brought NetOps here to visit with ODC as a potential. They can't use ARPA funds. Like if they went to the county or a city and said, we'd like some of those funds specifically for connectivity, they can't, because they are already in receipt, signed receipt, even though it was just $67,000 of federal funds. So they kind of become disqualified at that point, was my understanding. So that's why, again, we thought this might be a better venue. And again, it depends on what y'all want to do. You know, the gaps in the system are really outside the city of Odessa for the most part. Talked about Gardendale, West Odessa, all of that. So how big of a focus is that for you? But then again, understanding the connectivity needs and all of that, it was one of those things that we wanted to provide you some options that were very detailed in addressing those shortfalls or those gaps. And this was one of them.
So Jeff, I don't think that I know all the right players are not in this room to actually give you the answers that you need. I think there are a lot of moving pieces. I can say this, that I would anticipate that the answer to your question is yes. There could be some overlapping, but I would venture to guess that there will be some utilization of what NetOps will put in.
James, maybe you can answer this question. The thing that occurs to me is, will this assist small businesses with access?
Small businesses and residences, both.
Okay. I think from an ODC perspective, that's really what we ought to be focused on.
I don't know that this will answer your question, but as I'm thinking about it, what the school district did south in the Pleasant Farms area with the satellite thing. In this particular case, of course, that was a little bit different. We really tried to focus on fiber, where you could get fiber out there in as much of those areas, because one of the things we found talking to some of these companies, especially for new developments, running fiber in a new development is really cheap. And a lot of times, just for the ability to do that, they like to do it, as opposed to trying to run through an existing residential area and that sort of thing. And so the more we could get fiber spread out into those areas, the better. And even if you're looking at the hybrid systems, which are relying on the different towers and those sorts of things, you want to get that fiber as close into that as you can to better serve those areas, because of course that service degenerates a lot as it goes out. So again, I don't know if that's, and we have some of the maps and things like that that delineate this from the CAF grant application that might be helpful to you. But
So they're spending $14 million, is that, do they have that financing in place to?
I believe so.
To fund the project? Okay, and also, do we have an idea about how many, because I know like the satellite deal that, the school district did in Pleasant Farms, you know, I don't remember, it was a pretty big number and it ended up serving a very, very small itty bitty number of people. So do we have any idea how much area or how many homes or how many businesses that they plan on servicing once this is all in place?
Tracy will know better about their finances because she's been through all that. The second question I can answer, you don't know until it gets out there. They're a service provider like anybody else. Just because that service is available, maybe people utilize it, maybe they don't. And we have a lot of people who don't, to be real honest. That was one of the things we covered in our report. Even when it's available to them, they really don't want it. But remember, they're working under a Connecting America Fund grant, and the whole point of the Connecting America Fund grant isn't that X number of people sign up. It's just that it is in all these underserved areas so that it is there and it is available if they want it, if that makes sense.
Well, I'm assuming they have, Tracy, maybe, I'm assuming in their financials they have some projection to back up their investment as to.
Well, and they're an existing service provider here today with an existing customer base. So I think maybe.
Unfortunately, I apologize that I was not more prepared on this, but I do not have that information with me. But we do have that information.
So let me make sure I
available.
understand though. Our determination for giving them funds after they have completed their project.
And that is for their.
Has nothing to do with the number of service areas that they're able to do. It's about job creation.
And capital investment grant,
right?
Yes.
That's what we're determining everything off.
Correct.
Those two things.
And they have to.
And is it industrial manufacturing?
And industrial manufacturing. Does it fall within those guidelines?
Yeah.
Correct. And it does fall within all those guidelines.
We're chasing a rabbit. I'm not sure.
Well, I think that's the reason I made, one of the things that brings us over the top for me is that there are lots of small businesses out there
In that
that
area,
need
yes,
internet
in all of
access
those
too. So
areas.
if it's underserved area, then it helps them, so.
And then I guess my final question is on the job creation side, are these temporary jobs during construction, or are these permanent jobs that will stay around?
Well, they will be, at least stay around for the 5 years during their contract period, because that is a requirement. But yes, I mean, most of them are installation jobs. Some of them are installation jobs, but some of them are also, just maintenance jobs and things like that. But they do have a requirement of how long they have to maintain those jobs for at least the 5 years to be eligible for their grant. So they will be at least maintaining them at least that long.
I don't remember exactly from the packet, but I detailed in there certain permanent jobs going forward and then, temporary jobs. One of the things today, they have an office that is out along 191. That's their primary office. But they're also building a field office that's over on the West Odessa side.
Yes.
That they'll be staffing as well. And so that's going to be a lot of the permanent folks over there. And I think there's 4 or 5 permanent positions.
Well, typically when we do one of these contracts and we apply the matrix, we don't apply part-time or temporary jobs.
No,
they're all
W2.
full-time
Yeah,
jobs.
they're all full-time.
So that's 18 full-time jobs.
W2 jobs.
Full-time
yes.
equivalent jobs, right?
Yes. And these are.
I would move to approve.
Let me make, if I could, Dave, one more comment before you do that. I would just like to request again, when we get these in our board packet or however we want to do it, we've got, because we're asking for how much money in total?
$876,000.
$876,000, and in our board packet, what I know about it is I have a page and a third of information. And it really gives me a lot of heartburn to vote on an $870,000 grant with a page and a third of very summary information. And I can tell you, I want to see a lot more than that.
I agree.
I do too, actually.
I have a
Okay.
question.
Okay.
Is there anybody specifically that came, with this being out there for a while, came to you and said, we need this? Any one particular customer or group that it would really help them? I mean,
Well, not specifically this one, but there have been, I mean, they've been doing a excuse me, studies on broadband for a couple of years as to the need for that.
yeah.
And so we do, we were aware that there were a lot of underserved areas.
The way that we were introduced to them originally, this isn't going to be great, but I can answer this one, Mr. Russell, was through Facebook. And the reason why is because there was discussion in the reports that we were doing and the ones that had come about from the school district, specifically talking about South Odessa there, South Ector County along 385, the Pleasant Farms area, and what the school district was doing with those satellite providers. And we were approached by the provider about, hey, we're working down there, we're trying to put in fiber, we've been trying to get in contact with everybody about what we're doing. And so that's how we started talking to them and finding out more about what they were doing. It's been very difficult as we go through this because a lot of the companies that provide services out here are not local. They have no local person set up, so you're dealing with somebody out of state, what have you. And so unglamorous as it is, that's how we came across them originally on Facebook, but they had a lot of information. I know in their existing customer base, they have well over 1,000 outlying internet customers in the area. I think it's probably more than that. I don't know specifically, but they are an established company here. And when we learned that, that's when we started working with them, trying to find out what they were doing, and then saw that they were trying to fill these gaps that were identified in the report we did for y'all originally.
I was just trying to see if there was some sort of subsidy, that was already going on, and we're assisting another subsidy and one on top of another one. No.
Well,
I mean, with the federal grant and
The
this.
federal
and-
grant is the only one that's
Okay.
currently there today.
Okay, thank you very much.
No problem.
David, do you have
Yeah, I move to approve.
Second.
we got a motion and a second. All signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Any opposed?
Opposed?
And the reason for my no vote would just simply be that I don't feel comfortable with the amount of information that we have. It sounds like it could be a worthy project and all that, but I just don't feel comfortable based upon what we know here without the company having a representative here to tell us about their project, things like that. I know compliance has gone through a lot of that stuff,
Right.
but
Okay.
we're being asked to vote on it with almost no information.
Tracy, I'll be happy to help with the
Okay.
next package that comes
Absolutely.
before,
I
if you'd
that.
like. Because I think I know what we're all looking for.
I need to ask Chris what your vote was, because I did not hear anything from you.
I voted aye.
Okay, so we've got passes 5-2 with Jeff and Russell. No, Larry.
Yeah, did you vote
And, yeah,
Nay.
he voted
Nay.
nay.
I voted
Yeah.
nay.
Okay. All right, did you get that, Norma?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And as we discussed a while ago, the next line item, agenda item needs to be tabled at this time.
Roads is to be tabled?
Mm-hmm,
Okay.
yes, please.
All right, and then Larry, you've already done, you were up here, correct? So now we're to Cindy, consider resolution of ODC contract and audit services.
Yes, this agenda item is to approve the annual contract to do the outside audit, the firm of Weaver. They have been doing the audit. There was an RFP done several years ago. We have extended that for city purposes due to our computer conversions so that we're not changing auditors during that process. We're doing our final changeover with utility billing the start of November. And so it's recommended that you keep your same auditor as you're switching from one system to another. The total amount is listed there. It's an increase of $1,000 over last year's fee. And I will be glad to answer any questions you might have. This is for an outside independent audit of ODC. It also includes a payment for the Economic Development Division of the Chamber. That audit is done, and that report is issued to the Board of Directors of ODC.
Okay.
Cindy, does it include the audits that Weaver does of our compliance, our grant compliance? or
That
is
is under a separate agreement. It is not included in this, no. This is strictly for the independent audit of the ODC and EBD.
So we didn't bid that out this year because of
No.
Level 3 conversion?
Right.
But the idea would maybe next year to bid that out?
Maybe, depending on how this final transition goes for the city,
You
since
gotta be
it's
optimistic.
already in the current year, so chances are probably not. Let me tell you, conversions at a city level is not fun.
Okay, I need a motion on that if there's no more discussion.
Second it.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign, passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, next on the item, I'll ask Wes Burnett to come forward for a second, please. We had the opportunity, David Boutan and I and the chamber staff, part of the chamber staff, economic development staff, went to Fort Worth and received a very, very exciting award for the top, says Economic Development Award, Odessa Chamber of Commerce in recognition of exemplary achievement in the community economic development, presented October 14th by the Texas Economic Development Council. And we've won some awards in the past too, but this one is based on the Nacero, and it states population of 100,000 to 250. Odessa Chamber of Commerce, Odessa Development Corporation attracted Nacero, a Houston-based company that manufactures lower carbon gasoline. The gasoline will be manufactured from a combination of natural gas, captured biomethane, and mitigated flare gas, and will contain no sulfur, resulting in a cleaner burning fuel. Capital investment will be $6.5 to $7 billion and create 3,500 jobs during the 5 to 7 year construction phase. There will be 450 new full-time jobs upon completion of the facility, and they'll average $85,000 annually per job and $30 million in payroll. So, on behalf of the Odessa Economic Development Board, we thank Wesley and his heart. I worked with him quite a bit during this project, and I'll have to tell you, every time I tried to call him, I'll call you back, I'm in the meeting, and that starts about 7:30 and goes to about 6. And to be able to do what he did in capturing this project using drones, and I think Mr. Landgraf there helped us get that put together. It was a group project that turned out to be fantastic for all of us, and I just want to let Wes know how much we appreciate his work in getting us this award. So.
Well, I just have to say that every time Tim called, I was eating breakfast or dinner, so it wasn't really working. So, no, I appreciate the appreciation, and the award was everybody's award in Odessa, and the Development Corporation, and the Chamber of Commerce, and the staff there, and the volunteer base that went into this project. And of course, I've said it 1,000 times that Odessa is different than anywhere else. We've got great volunteers, we've got a great organization, and the effort when you call people to come together to meet about projects, everybody gets it. They know what they're doing. They know how to discuss big things with big people, and that makes a huge difference for projects like this. And can't do it without the support of the city and the county and the schools and all of the taxing entities, the hospital, and of course Odessa College as well. So. It wasn't Wes, it was the whole team. So appreciate everybody that was involved in this. And again, it's just great recognition for Odessa. So appreciate your assistance on that and the recognition. So thanks.
Well done.
Yeah. Okay, item number 12, discussion on the economic development contractor agreement by and between Odessa Development Corporation of Odessa and Odessa Chamber of Commerce Economic Development Department. Jeff?
Yeah.
You asked for that.
Yeah, I asked for this to be put on the agenda. With Wes leaving kind of unexpectedly, or at least I think it was to most of us. We expected Wes to be here for a good while longer, and it came kind of right as we were going into a new budget year, and my question really became, because I think Odessa, from what I understand, is a little bit unique in that most economic development corporations like ODC don't typically kind of farm out their economic development work. They'll have an internal director and some internal staff. I think since inception of ODC back however many years it's been, that has always been contracted out with the Chamber of Commerce. And so I thought it was maybe an appropriate time for us to look at, and I don't know the answer to this question, but is that the right way forward for us in the future as we're having, or do we use this time period when we're going to be having, whether it's us or the Chamber is going to be in the process of hiring a new director for our economic development work? Is this now the time to look at whether we should bring that in-house, continue contracting with the Chamber? And so really I just ask Tim if we could put this on the agenda just to have a discussion and to see what everybody's thoughts were, if we should just continue on business as usual, or if we should look at maybe doing something that would be more beneficial for us.
Okay, we've prior to you coming on to the board, when Betsy was still our chair, we kind of touched base a little bit on that and did some research and everything. I think she looked at Amarilla, but it never became much of a conversation, because when we looked at it, and when you see where we rank in the population of 250,000 and less, and we're in the top 10, I think, in the nation and everything else, we kind of looked at that as, and we came to a conclusion that Odessa is a little bit unique, but we're so successful with what we're doing right now, we really questioned whether we should change anything at that time. And I think when you land the largest project in the state of Texas, and I think it's now we've got a tough road to hoe. We've got to find a replacement for a real fine young man. So we've got to get that taken care of. But as far as the process that we go through and how it's been working, I don't see anything at this point. I would be hesitant to make any changes, because I feel like we've been so successful the way it's been. I'll ask Renee to come up if you would, and kind of add to what. And with Betsy, it never got into I mean, it was a discussion between us and thought, and she looked into. That's where I think she also came into the what I call the Shark Tank, and they told us never to say that. She in her research, she found that project that we did. So, but Renee, would you like to respond?
Sure. That was right about the time I became CEO of the Chamber, and that Wes was hired. The way the Chamber works, we have 3 departments: economic development, which is funded through ODC, our tourism, which is funded through Hotel Motel, and then our operations department, which is self-sustaining, paid through memberships and events. We have been the contractor since 1997 when ODC started. I think the Chamber led the way in getting the election passed. We have an overwhelming number of volunteers that support the Chamber. We are audited annually, which many of the contractors are not. And I think, with no disrespect, but there's a saying, if it's not broken, don't fix it. And I think that we have many people who feel like it's going well. We are accountable. We're not only accountable to you, but we have a board of directors of 30 people who oversee us as well. We have a staff. If you take Wes out of the component, that staff still has over 40 years experience in economic development with Odessa. I will tell you that there is no one in this room more than me who will make sure that we have the right person in that position. We, the position is a chamber position, so ultimately I make that hire, but I ask that we have a search committee, and I asked him as chairman of ODC to sit on that. David Boutan is a former chair of the chamber, also a member of Grow Odessa and ODC, to sit on that, as well as our chair and chair-elect, or past chair now and chair of our chamber, because I don't want that sole responsibility. I want other people's opinions. We did the very same thing when we hired Wes. We got a group together and we went and found Wes and had him come back to the chamber. He did not apply for the job. We went and found him. So we feel like that, we're certainly doing a good job for you. We work each and every day to promote Odessa. I think it works well. I have many colleagues throughout the state that either continue to have tourism and economic development under the chamber, or they did at one time. And we absolutely feel like the three departments provide synergy and really work well together. Daily, we receive calls from out of the community, because when someone is looking to go to a community, they normally call the Chamber of Commerce. So we're able to help them. We're a one-stop shop, and we feel like, we certainly do a good job. We also feel like we listen to you and want to work for you. We do work for you, so we want you to be happy and pleased as well. In thoughts that you might have some questions, I happen to do some research, so I'll just fill this or hand this out to you. It's basically, this is a review from starting about 1999. I think that was the first project that came online. What has happened over those 20 some odd years. ODC has invested about $18 million from an operations budget, and that shows you basically what you've gotten for your money. 51 projects, and none of these numbers count Nacero, because technically we have not given out any money for Nacero, so none of those Nacero numbers are in this. More than 2,300 jobs have been created with more than $123 million paychecks. And then in indirect jobs, more than 1,400 of those, with a total more than 51 jobs and $183 million. Total capital investment that you've committed, $844 million. Again, on an $18.4 million overall operating budget. I think what stands out to me, for every dollar of investment that ODC generates, $517 in economic impact, $100 in additional worker earnings, 89 cents for additional tax revenue for the city, and more than $6 in tax revenue for all local taxing districts. You talked about investments earlier and the interest rates. Well, I think that's a pretty good return on investment right there. And I think all of us as investors would hope that we could get that kind of money out of our own investments.
Renee, I have a few questions, just from a practical standpoint. What all does the chamber do? Y'all, obviously, you run the employees of the Economic Development Department. You take care of payroll taxes, you take care of providing them benefits, you take care of providing them a retirement.
Yes, we have a 401k, we have all of that you've said.
And so if we were to stop contracting with the chamber, we would be taking on that responsibility ourselves. Is that correct?
Yes, you would ultimately set up a full staff. Again, the employees we have currently right now work for the chamber. So ODC would need to have a director, it would need to have a marketer, you would need to have additional staff, you would need to have an office. We do feel like that we provide some cost savings and that we share some costs with two other departments. We provide, of course, full benefits. We do have the city, we're able to receive city benefits from a chamber standpoint. We do have 401k, we have vacation time. I mean, the full gamut. You're employing.
But none of us have to worry about who's on vacation when. None of us have to worry about collecting and remitting payroll taxes.
Absolutely.
None of us have to worry about those things.
You don't have to make, someone's working every day. You don't have to know that the doors are opening or someone's answering the phone. Because we do that. I do that overall. And again, we have three departments. I oversee those departments as the CEO. You know, if you're in our office at any time, and most of you are in and out of there, you know, we have an incredible culture. We have a great team. We get comments on that over and over of people who we work with. You know, we just got through serving barbecued sandwiches at the Chuck Wagon Gang today. I changed in the car in front of a park about 4 blocks down. Hope there were no cameras around there. But Chris, the Black Chamber serving later this week, we served today at lunch. And that list shows you who our partners are. You know, I'm very proud of our chamber. We have a meeting later this week where we'll be around different Texas chambers, and we often hear, you know, we're very impactful and effective. Things here in this community have gotten done because of our Chamber of Commerce. And I'm proud to say that. You know, I've only been there 5 years, but, you know, I have been a volunteer with them for 20 plus years. So I'm very familiar with our history and our commitment to this community.
And I wanted to make sure you don't think I'm taking a pot shot at you guys, because I understand. You know, I just wanted to have the discussion as we go through this transition period, because it's incumbent upon this board, like it is every board, that you know, to get the most bang for the buck, to do the best job with every resource we have. And so that's why, you know, I wanted to just have the discussion. Could you update us a little bit on how this search for a West replacement is?
Sure. We have it posted, you know, all over the place. We've probably received 40 to 45 different resumes. Some of those are local. Most of them are from out of state, some from Texas. We have narrowed it down, if you will. You know, we've taken that 45 and narrowed it down to maybe 15. The committee has those resumes. They've then narrowed it down to about 10. Since that time, I've received maybe, you know, 10 in the last week. So it's moving along. You know, we were hoping to have a replacement by January 1. We know that with Thanksgiving and Christmas, that certainly is a time period where we may not have, you know, too many people making a move at that time. But we know that we want to do some in-person interviews, and we know that some of these people, you know, are far away, and we may set up some Zoom interviews. But our committee plans to get together next week and narrow those down. And so we're seeing, you know, some positive resumes come through.
I'd sure like to make a comment. You know, I think we've got the luxury of being deliberate in this process, because we do have a seasoned staff on hand that can take care of the day-to-day obligations for some period of time. I think this is a good discussion to have. I've always believed that just because you've done it one way, that doesn't mean that you need to continue to do it. So I think the discussion is very healthy for the Odessa Development Corporation. But I would also say, and I don't mean this, I don't want to offend anybody at the city staff or the city council, but if we don't contract this and we do it as part of our city government, then we're basically just creating a larger city government, and I'm not in favor of that. I don't think that's beneficial to our community, particularly since we've had so much success the way we've done it. Have we been perfect? No, but we've been very, very successful. So I would be in favor of continuing and have all the confidence in the world that we're going to hire an economic development director that's going to be very effective, and we're going to continue to leverage the volunteers, all the contacts, all the effort, the point of contact for outside entities to get to Odessa. So I'm very comfortable with it. And again, I appreciate the discussion, because it only confirms to me that we're doing the right things on this. And this has been a very, very productive board, and we're doing some really good things.
Well, and you know, again, it gives us an opportunity. We don't always toot our own horn. I mean, we happened to get an award earlier today for doing what we do, and you know, it made me sit down and look at these numbers, and we're always, you know, looking for ways to improve. So I too appreciate the conversation, and I absolutely echo what you said, Mr. Boutin, about, you know, I'm not one to say, well, we've always done it that way. It just can't be that way. So we need to move forward and always expect improvement.
Yeah, I think I agree with that too, David. the opportunity to compare what we do here to what is done in other places is very illuminating, because we do have more success, it seems, than some of the other communities in the same size range. And maybe part of that reason is because we do things differently than the way they do them.
And Hal from Macero has given us full range to abuse Mr. Burnett until we find someone.
And he is still working for us as needed.
And I noticed when he mentioned about adding another department to the city, Marrero back there in the corner wasn't jumping up and down either. But I think it's something that we got to keep on the forefront to discuss in the future. But I think the timing at this point right now, I think we would. It would.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a comment?
Yes.
So, yeah, I agree from both sides to an extent. One, I know, Renee, you said that, if things are going this good, why change? But we can also never sail new oceans if we don't lose sight of the shore. So we've got to consider new things as well. Yes, there are synergies between the chamber and economic development and all of these pieces working together. I agree. But it's our job as ODC to look out for what's best for ODC. And if that happens to be staying partnered with the chamber, fantastic. That's great. But I think ever so often we have to do our due diligence and look at other options. One of which being, is this a time that Odessa Development Corporation needs to stand on its own 2 feet? I like what you said, Mr. Rutan, in that if we keep perpetuating growing city government, we're just going to end up with a bigger city government. And our city staff does a great job, but I think we need to look at an avenue of having ODC stand on its own 2 feet. I think ODC would be better served I think the city would be better served if we had our own legal department, if we had our own investment advisor, in some of those things. So I'm glad we're having this conversation. These are just my opinions, but if we don't do our due diligence, then we haven't served people of Odessa well. And if the final decision is to stay right where we're at, then fantastic. But I think we need to dig a little deeper. We need to ask these questions. Yes, the chamber does a lot of things for us. We also pay the chamber a lot of money for those things that we do. We share about $4,000 worth of rent for the office that we keep over there for 2 or 3 folks. Could we office somewhere else less expensively, but and not lose some of those things that the consistency that goes along with it? I don't know. But if we don't have the conversation, we're never going to have that. But I do think we need to dig a little deeper. Now may or may not be the right time to do it, but between now and the next time the contract comes up, I think we definitely had a little deeper discussion.
I will say on our rent, for instance, we divide it out by square footage, and the space that economic development utilizes, that's what they're charged for. We don't just split it 3 ways. And believe me, we have looked at other facilities, and we know we are getting a pretty darn good deal in our current location. But no, you're exactly right, Mr. Crow. You should be. This is what your job is, to always look at other opportunities.
Please don't feel slighted, and I can see why you would feel that way. The chamber does a fantastic job. I'll be the first one to stand up and applaud the job that you guys have done and continue to do. But the question is the future direction of Odessa Development Corporation, how does that coincide with that?
Well, we certainly want to be here and be considered. We want to keep on doing what we're doing and make you proud. And please know that we are always going to be an option for you to look at.
Okay. Any other comments on this discussion before we move to the next one? Thanks, Renee.
Thank you.
Item 13, discussion on economic development administrative services agreement between Odessa Development Corporation and the City of Odessa. Jeff, that was we don't have a contract with legal. I think that was what you were referring to on your request.
Yeah.
And so it's come. We've had this discussion too when I first came on, and we said, okay, we want to know how much we're paying, because we had some issues with legal in the past. In fact, I started a meeting and I called my councilman, Mayor Willis, and told her, I said, I need to let you know, but I said, we can't get any information out of legal, so when we open up the meeting, I'm going to make a motion to adjourn because of lack of information. We got the packets that you were getting, we got on the Thursday morning with a Thursday. And so we've addressed that, and that was back when we had our interim lawyer that was working here. So, but the way it's worded the way it is because all of our services are wrapped up together. But with that being said, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, the, kind of along the same veins, and we've touched on little edges of this. I have seen some issues, even in the short time I've been on ODC board, where it seems like our legal staff is sometimes a little bit conflicted in that they report to, they seem to be they have a lot of chiefs. They report to city manager's office and the city staff here. They report to city council. They report to us, and I wonder at sometimes if those three things are kind of pulling city legal sometimes in differing directions, and so as much as we don't like to talk about it, particularly in legal politics, often plays a role, I think, in everything that we do, at least to some degree, and so I really began to. Even more so than maybe the chamber and all that, but does ODC need to retain its own legal counsel and not rely upon city legal for the things that we do? Because I do think Chris kind of made the statement. There are times I think where ODC needs to stand on its own 2 feet, and I think this is probably one of the most important ones. Because a lot of times we're needing legal advice that is solely slanted towards helping ODC, and I think there are times where that may be in a little bit of tension or a little bit of conflict with what maybe the city wants, and ultimately the city council has final say on everything that we do. Every project we approve, they have to finalize it, and it's their call. They're the elected officials. But I know Tim and I had a conversation one day, and really kind of broach this subject a little bit. Would it be beneficial for us not to contract in specifically legal services with the city, or do we go retain our own counsel that has one solitary focus, and that's on helping ODC do our job?
Any other comments? Melanie, do you have any?
I think that it's worth exploring. The question's going to become, where would we look to for that type of representation? I see that Chris Terry was here, but he's left. So I can't put him on the spot. I know he's represented similar entities. Natasha would probably be able to speak better about where those conflicts might lie. I'm sure that there are some from time to time where there's some push and pull, and
ultimately legal, we follow the law just like we're doing today. Everybody is not happy with the procedures that happen today, but we always follow the law, and that's always been our goal. I know we work very closely with the Economic Development Director. The agreements that are done, the Nacero agreement, legal did that agreement, and we had a huge time constraint, which people don't realize, but because we're experienced in those agreements and things of that nature, we were able to get those things done. And so at the end of the day, we're going to follow the law regardless of push, pull, or whatever. Legal reports to ODC, and we also report to the council. We do, but in everything we do, we follow the law. We get information out to you. Tina, half of her job has been Odessa Development Corporation. I don't think you'll find anybody with as much experience as our department in actually handling economic development. So that's my comment.
I know that I lean on Natasha and Tina, especially the two of them, quite a bit on our ODC, and that has not been an issue. in the recent future. Now, I know we had some issues back when we had the guy from Austin several times, and I think that's when that conversation was, that's when we realized that things weren't getting done from that standpoint, but that was an interim deal. That's not a fair deal, and Natasha came on board, and one of the first thing I told her, and correct me if I'm wrong, I said, because of what we went with that interim, that there's some of us thought we needed to get outside counsel, but I told her that once she came on board that we'd give her a chance. That's bygone stuff. And she's done a decent job, a great job for us as far as I'm concerned. As far as my relations, and their instructions are keep me out of the ditch. And they've done a pretty good job of it, I think, so far. Till we tried to do this today, but that's okay. I understand you've got to make it legal.
You know, I mean, they don't in law school teach you how to work camera. But Jeff, I think we'd end up having to look at somebody who was not local, and I don't know if that's something that you would want to do. I don't know that there's anybody locally that is experienced in this type of.
And when we had the interim, that's the first thing they said is we'd have to go to a Lubbock or maybe a Dallas-Fort Worth to get someone that had the knowledge and
And I
background
don't know
of being
that
up development.
we would be treated like much of a priority.
Can we, a question, could we get some information regarding other communities of our size who employ legal counsel solely for the purpose of their economic development effort? Can we find that?
I think Wes has already left. He might. No, here he is, Wes. Do you know of any other?
Sure.
That.
Yeah, a lot do. Yeah, that'd be easy to get if you wanted.
Well, and then we might be able to, Tim, maybe you could call some of these your counterparts and say, hey, and particularly if they've gone from one way or the other, be good to know that. If maybe they've had their own legal counsel and then they've gone back, or vice versa.
The pros and cons of
I think it would be good to find some information like that.
I think that's a great idea if we could do that.
Yeah. Okay. Any other comments on that? 14, review of findings and discussion of CVA ad committee meeting. Jeff and Chris Cole are on that committee. I serve as the chair, but as not the chair of the committee, but as the chairman. And we met with Craig last week, and I might say it was a very encouraging meeting. Got a lot of questions answered, and those are the things. I think there's lots of things we can do to tweak things that make us better and more effective, and that's how we get to it, is by bringing some of these things up. So I'll turn it over to Jeff to and Craig stayed here for it in case you have any questions from him.
Come on up, Craig. You're going to have to help me here a little bit.
And Renee was.
Pieced it together. Okay, perfect. I had it down in the truck and I left it. But one of the items that we covered, we had talked about it previously when we went through budget, where there were certain pass-through expenses that were really more economic development than advertising.
Correct.
And so we wanted to just get those slotted correctly, and if you have that list.
I do. There were actually 6 different items that we identified as being truly beneficial to the Economic Development Department that were strictly pass-through budgetary items on the CVA budget. Had been since I took it over the actual account work on that 2 years ago. So they were, you want me to go through the list?
Yeah, if you could just read
Sure.
the list.
I'd be glad to. There was a total impact software for the total amount of $9,000, an economic index report that the chamber uses to do their periodic emails and mailings for $12,000. There was also, come on, cooperate with me here, phone, High Ground annual membership. That annual membership was $25,000. Annual license to Jobs EQ, which was $11,500. The Team Texas annual dues, which were $4,000. The TEDC dues, which were $25,000 in the budget, and that's the total of the 6. All those items together came up to $86,500, and if we move those from the CVA budget to the chamber budget, then the CVA budget would be $615,754.
Okay, thank you.
Is that
Very
helpful?
much. That's very helpful.
Okay, good deal.
I'm glad you had good notes.
Well, I had good emails coming to me, so.
But we also had a great discussion about billing and how billing's working and all, and so Craig's
Correct.
gonna begin giving us a little more detail on our monthly bill, a little hourly breakdown of what we're spending on what avenue and target in our ad budget,
Yeah.
which will help us. And then also we were requesting that we change our billing process just a little bit, where Craig would actually submit his bill to the advertising committee for a quick review, and then it would go on to Cindy to be paid every month. That way we're a little bit more aware of what we're.
Is there any one person that you would prefer that bill to go to on the advertising committee, or, I mean,
If you just send it
matters
all
not to
three of
us.
If we could.
Okay,
Yeah, if
to
you
send
could
it
do
to
that.
everyone? Okay,
Yeah.
glad to do it.
And then we had a really great discussion, and this is probably not the time or place, but I kind of want to throw it out there to get everybody thinking about it. You know, as we kind of concluded that, we began to have a discussion about, you know, who our target market is.
Right.
Who we're trying to attract, how we're going about that, shotgunning versus rifling, all
Right,
these kinds
sure,
of things.
sure.
And so I told, as we discussed it, you know, that's kind of a big discussion. It needs to be an ODC discussion.
Right.
Because we had conversations about, should we be focused on diversification, or should we be focused on our meat, potatoes, bread, and milk, and everything else that we have here, which is oil and gas related. You know, and if we're doing one, you know, our approach is gonna be different than if we're doing the other.
And we also discussed, do we need to look at solving some of the challenges that we have internally in Odessa that could keep business wanting to
Yes.
come here?
Yeah, workforce availability.
Right.
Housing, things like this. I know we touch on those things all the time in ODC, but that also has an impact on what Craig's
Absolutely,
doing.
absolutely.
And so you know, I'd like to just kind of throw that out there real briefly. I know our meeting's getting a little long, but you know, and I'd like us to maybe think about just having some time of discussion where we just discuss that as a broad picture view, and maybe bring everybody in to do that, to talk about, you know, over the next 3 years, 5 years, you know, you know, what are we really trying to accomplish? You know, Chris made the great point of diversification being very difficult when we have very high costs of labor, we have labor shortages, we have housing shortages.
Right.
And so it may behoove us to really take and dig in and say, more than we've ever done, and I know a lot of work has been done in the past, but more than we've ever done to look at how do we solve those problems.
Right.
So that we become more
Make it easier to
attractive.
market Odessa, yeah.
There's no reason, I guess, we couldn't have a special meeting, like a work session in that
Sure.
regard.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I would think that'd be
I
beneficial.
think that makes good sense, Mr.
Yeah.
Batan.
Probably need to set up a work session and have about 2 or 3 items that we want to discuss.
Sure.
That's the hardest thing is because we had a great meeting, but Chris and I and Jeff are the only ones that could be there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And when you have a meeting like that and see everybody working together.
Would we, and let me ask this, would we want to do that meeting now, or do we want to wait until see who takes that position as Economic Development Director?
I would say.
And draw on
we need to
their
do it
expertise, but it's either way is fine with me, it doesn't matter.
I think we need to have it, if it's gonna be the first of the year before we get the person, I think we need to have our.
Do it
workshop
now.
Between now and the end of the year.
Sure, Renee could sit in.
Yeah.
No reason for her not to be.
We may
Or
put her in
Tracy.
charge.
Yeah,
That's
Tracy,
right.
both.
So,
Yeah, both.
Yeah. Okay,
Okay?
sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Uh-huh.
So can I get the clarification on the budget issue, because we do have some of those invoices and it's still in your budget?
Well,
Are we going to make an amendment or put that on the next agenda?
That's what needs to be decided.
Since it's not on the agenda today,
Yeah.
we can't do anything, so we would have
It'll be
to
on
move
next-
that to next meeting.
Moving a certain dollar amount from
Yes.
CPA budget to.
Basically, what we discovered in that meeting, the numbers that y'all. Okay?
Very good.
I would also need guidance if you're going to be reviewing the billing before it comes to me to send to finance for payment. I need to know who's okay I get to pay that. Is there,
You can take me off. I got too much. Take me off. Sorry.
Jeff and I'll get with Jeff.
and then y'all will,
Yeah,
yeah,
and you need to
so
give-
we can't wait a week or two
No,
once
no,
you
give
get
me
the bill? Okay.
Give me a deadline a week before you need it.
So Mr. Edgman and Ms. Nelson.
Yeah, just send it to us and we'll go.
Not a problem.
Okay. Item 15, appoint 2 additional board members and 3 non-voting on the compliance committee. I'd like to ask each and every one of you to see who you would like to appoint, or if you have someone in mind to appoint on the committee, and at the next meeting, sit down and fill that place out to make sure everybody has a chance to, if you know of someone that wants to serve on compliance.
I'm a little confused. I thought did we not complete the process a few months back? Or?
No, we put
agreed to
Peggy
expand,
on,
but we
and then
didn't
we
actually
expanded
do
it
the
to
process.
no more than 12, no less than 10. So we've got 2 spaces available. So we need to, at the next meeting, come up with some nominees and try to fill at least 1 or 2 of those.
And Tim, don't we already have a list of interested parties as well? Didn't
We did a couple of.
I mean,
meetings ago.
might be worth revisiting those with those folks and see if they're still
Right.
interested
Right, okay,
as well.
right. All right.
Are we also going to, because with our, I'm trying to remember our conversation that we had, with the expansion of the ODC from 5 to 7 members, that would let us put 3 members on compliance and still not get ourselves crosswise with OMA.
Yes, and I think,
So
Did
were we going to
Wesley-
take one of those spots and appoint an additional?
We were gonna just add 2 new spots to
Right.
compliance.
What they've done in the past is I'll get an email saying there's gonna be a compliance meeting, are you gonna, at this day and time, are you gonna be able to go? And if I can't, they kinda go down the line to
Yeah.
the,
but we
So
can't
it's
have.
So
not-
are you the only ODC member that's typically?
No, I think,
No.
no,
Or do we have
Chris
two?
Cole,
Chris?
How do we get on that email list?
I think we all are.
Well, I
Yeah.
I don't
believe
think
the, okay, the board in the past, the board has always appointed, board members to be on the compliance committee.
So with this discussion,
Yeah.
it's going to be 1 additional board member.
Right, cause there's,
Appointed.
there's
Okay.
2 right now, and y'all
I
were
had
gonna appoint
thought
another one.
maybe-
This,
Chris Crow, weren't you invited to a compliance
Yeah.
meeting? You were.
I thought,
The last meeting I was not invited to, but I heard the last 2. Since Miss Sarah, I haven't been invited to one at all yet.
So currently,
But we've only had
Well,
one,
and
I
nobody got
apologize, there's only
invited
been
to
one.
the last one.
so currently the 2
That was
that are
it.
theoretically sitting are myself and Melanie, correct?
That's correct.
And then so we just need to add another.
Add another
add another
appointee,
one.
to be an ODC appointee. That's correct.
And that's an ex officio
Yeah.
Yes, those are ex
capacity,
officios.
right?
Mhm. But you were also, maybe not this time. There was a discussion one time about adding some additional compliance committee members.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
that's what
yeah.
we're
Okay.
Yeah,
From
that's,
10 to
But-
12.
But, yeah,
Or
and there
at
were
least
some
10 or more.
applications for that, in
Right.
through an application process.
right.
and that's what he was asking, we still
Yeah.
have that list.
Yeah.
We might need to try to run that through in the
Mhm.
next, we'll get that out.
Okay. So, yeah, just one.
Yeah, in
another
fact,
board member.
Tracy, I think maybe would be prudent for Tracy to revisit that list to determine whether those folks are interested in serving. Would that be okay? Or,
Yeah,
I
and-
can-
and
I
if we
can
could
call
also
and ask
put
him.
it out, I don't know how we publicize it, but if we could publicize it to see if any new people want to get
Okay,
on the list.
and they get with you, compliance committee members that wanna be?
And I'll forward it to the board.
Okay.
And can you forward it to council as well, in case they know of someone that might want to? Okay,
Yes, okay, we can do that.
all right. Okay, the last item on this page is discuss compliance committee. I wasn't quite sure. Jeff, you,
That was it,
Okay.
yeah, that was.
all right.
so
Then our,
do we have the ability, based on the way it's framed on here, to go ahead and appoint an additional board member?
To sit on the,
On number 15 is the
so
Yeah.
appoint another one of us to be able to sit in
Correct.
on those meetings.
and I thought Chris Crow was appointed, but I'll double check.
I nominate Chris Crow.
I'll second.
Okay, we got a nomination. Can we vote on this?
Yes.
Nomination in a second.
Congratulations,
Any
Chris.
discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. And Tracy, you'll get Chris Crow's information, so he's our third one. And then, correct me if I'm wrong, but if they call Melanie and she can't go, that you can call, notify someone else. We just kind of we can't have more than three. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. On our committee reports, I know partnership hasn't cranked back up. Tax incentive, y'all haven't done anything, have you, Melanie?
No.
And advertising, we gave that report. Jeff Russell, do you have anything to add on downtown?
No, I know we've got some grant applications kind of in the works, but nothing that has been finalized at this time.
Okay. Any other citizens' comments that are not on agenda items? Okay, I'll ask for a motion for adjournment.
I'll make a motion.
Got a motion?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed.
We beat the 406.
Greens and fairways, Chris. Now, do y'all have to video us leaving, or can we just do that?
Do you have to video us leaving? That was good.
That is cool. So do you get to keep it in your office?
She said she didn't come up here, or she went back? Okay, hang on just a second. I'll sign.